This is a special podcast presentation from 700WLW.com. This is Doc Thompson On Demand.
It ain't be looking good for the old U.S. of A. It's not looking good. Well, first of all, we got a report yesterday that we're $1.5 trillion deficit now this year. And 2012 already predicted to be notably over $1 trillion. $1 trillion this year and next year we're going to add to the national debt. It ain't looking good for us. We're already at $14 trillion. And now information out today, new numbers from the Congressional Budget Office that says that whole Social Security thing that you've been counting on for retirement, yeah, it's they've moved up its insolvency. They've moved that up. Oh, we've been talking about it for decades, and it's always so far into the future. Even the last few years, they say, well, it's so far into the future. You know, we got to do something, but we got time. And every year, they move it up a little bit more. It is going to run at a deficit this year and continue to run in the red until the trust funds are completely drained about 2037. Yeah, do the math. If you're in your, let's say, early 40s, yeah, that's right about the time that you would retire and start collecting those benefits. You've paid in your entire life against your will, gun to your head. The money was removed out of your check, even though it's been insolvent, even though you know it's unsustainable, even though they have rated this thing over and over again. And when you retire, it's not going to be there. For those of us in our early 30s, I think it is going to run out. I'll get it for a year. If you're early 40s, if you're in your early 40s, you're supposed to be able to collect full at about 67, the age of 67. That would be me. So it'd be about a year after I retire at 67. I get it for a year. Russ Jackson would get it for a couple of years. Anybody under that, 40, 39, 38, you ain't getting any of it. That's kind of nice, isn't it? Oh, I haven't really counted on it. Oh, for years I have already said I am not counting on that. First of all, I'm counting on it being so little by the time, you adjust for inflation, that if I were to get $800, $1,000, $1,200 a month, 30-some years from now, it's just not going to amount to that much. So I'm not counting on it. But it doesn't mean that I'm not ticked off. It doesn't mean that I'm not pissed that I didn't have that money all these years to invest the way I want or simply flat out spend. That I didn't have that option. And then you're going to tell me that I'm not even going to get that little pittance back that I have invested and paid in? It's a pyramid scheme to begin with. You pay in your whole life, and if you die a year after starting to collect Social Security benefits, what happens? Did you really get out all you paid into it? No. Meanwhile, you could live to be 178 and you could collect the entire time having only paid in the smallest of fraction. It is a flawed system and is just about redistribution of wealth. It is about telling some people they need to take from somebody else. And mark my words, if I retire and do not get the money that was taken from me, I am going to get it one way or another. Naked in a clock tower in D.C., I will be there. I think the Declaration of Independence would look pretty good on my wall. I'm getting something. This year alone, Social Security is going to pay out $45 billion more in retirement. $45 billion. It's like monopoly money to them. It's $45 billion. It's okay. President of the State of the Union talked about cutting $400 billion from the budget this year. $400 billion is going to do nothing. I want him to cut that and a whole lot more. But don't come at me like $400 billion is going to do anything when you got $45 billion right there in Social Security debt this year. The figure is actually going to triple to $130 billion when the 1-year cut in payroll taxes included. Do you remember right around Christmas, they were trying to pass the budget, and they were saying, okay, what are we going to do about this tax thing? Are we going to go ahead and tax those people that make over $250,000 a year, those rich people? Are we going to do that? And there were all these items on the table, all of these issues, and what they negotiated was, one of the keys of this that they agreed to, both sides and signed, that there would be a 1-year cut in payroll taxes. Payroll taxes is just Social Security. And they say, just Social Security. So it would have been 6.2% payroll tax paid by both workers and employers. But in December, Congress said we're going to cut that down to 4.2%. So they're going to take in even less. That's nice they're taking in even less, but that means a $130 billion debt this year. President said he wanted a bipartisan solution to strengthen Social Security for future generations. There is no true solution and keeping it around. You cannot keep it around and say, I've got a solution. Well, first of all, even if you like the idea of raising the age of retirement for full benefits to 70, 75, whatever it is, people aren't going to stand for it. They're not going to do it. That's number one. Number two, that does not make it sustainable. That simply extends the problem. It is a pyramid scheme. You know how you know it's a pyramid scheme? Because there's no getting out of it without somebody getting left holding the bag. It's like musical chairs. Somebody is going to get stuck without a chair if you try to get rid of it. Think about it. If we suddenly today said, okay, that's it, we're doing away with Social Security. As of tomorrow, it goes away. Well, all those people that have been on Social Security are people who have paid into Social Security. Well, most of them, aside from people that have cheated the system or pretend they have a disease and get some sort of disability. But the ones who are using it for retirement, most people have paid into it. And then you're going to tell them, whoop, it's not there. And we told you it would be there, and you counted on this. So they get screwed. If you end it 10 years from now, well, same scenario. Those people who are depending on it and paid into it get screwed. So let's say you get really fiscally responsible and you say, let's go ahead and wrap this Social Security thing up. But we'll do it years down the road. We'll do it after the people that are currently under the age of eligibility to work, 18, 16, whatever it is, after they have retired. In other words, we'll tell them right now, if you're 16, 18, you don't have to pay into this flawed system, but you're also not going to get the benefits. Great. Okay, good deal. Nobody gets left holding the bag. Wrong. They're still going to have to pay into it, so the people just a little bit older will continue to get the benefits. Or the people just a little bit older than them won't get the benefits, but will continue to pay in for other people. That's how you know it's a pyramid scheme. It's one of those things people send around your office where, hey, you give me $10 and then you get 10 people to sign up. They all give you $10 and then all of those. And 45 days down the road, you'll end up with $1 gazillion. It's all fine until it stops, till it runs out of steam or somebody puts an end to it. Somebody gets stuck holding the bag. It is a flawed system. So can we just admit that finally? Can we just go ahead and admit that it was a bad system simply to take from some and give to others? I would be, as part of my generation, and it does not make me happy, but I would be willing to be the one that gets left holding the bag if, and only if, they were to take my advice on bringing taxes in line, lowering my taxes other ways, cutting spending. If they were willing to do that, I would say, fine, I'll continue to pay without expecting anything in return. But that's not going to happen, so I'm going to get my money as long as you have forced me to hand it over via my paycheck every week. The way to do it is to simply tell people at a certain age now, people who are not in the workforce, this is not something you can count on. You will not get retirement. But for your first 10 years, you're going to have to pay in a small, maybe even smaller amount than we take out of your check, that they take out everyone else's check now. Sorry. Blame it on FDR and that generation for starting this ridiculous program. And then people slightly older, sorry, you're going to get reduced benefits as we go ahead and wind this thing down. But as the trade-off, we're going to bring taxes in line. We're going to straighten out the government once and for all. We're going to cut departments that don't need to exist, things like the EPA, things like the Department of Energy, which has done no good, and things like the Education Department, which should be the responsibility of the states. We will go ahead and cut all of those things drastically. We will cut other departments of the government as well, bringing our spending way under what we actually bring in every year. We're also going to bring taxes in line, so hopefully you'll pay a little bit less. These are all the things we're going to do for you, and we're going to start winding it down. Part of this is going to be paying off the national debt. It's the 20 or 30-year program to put America back on fiscal responsibility, fiscally right track. Do you know what the top things that we pay for every year? I'm going to run down the list here. Just under 20% of the federal budget, just under 20%, the number one thing that we spend cash on every month, every year, is Social Security benefits. Now, this is not the Social Security administrative costs. This is Social Security benefits. Just under 20%. There's not one big pot of money out there that they're investing for Social Security and then taking interest in all of this. It essentially is a promissory note that the federal government agrees to honor. They will make sure you have your benefits. Number 2 is defense at just under 19% of our spending. Number 3 at right around 16%, unemployment, welfare, other mandatory spending, they say. It's basically some entitlements. Number 4 at 13% is Medicare. Number 5 at 8% is Medicaid. And number 6 at around 4.5%, debt on our past expenses. You know what 5 of those 6 have in common? Social Security, defense, unemployment, welfare, Medicare, Medicaid, and past debt. 4 of those 5, representing about 70% of everything we spend money on. Failed government, failed ideas. Social Security, failed idea. It's unsustainable. 100 years down the road, you hit a bump in the road because there are more people retiring or less people working or whatever it is. The whole thing comes crashing down, and that's one of the things that we've seen over the years. Failed idea. Defense, you have to have it. That is the one exception out of the 6 that is a failed government idea or execution. It is not 100% on the right track, but we have to have it. We have to defend ourselves. Now, 19% of our budget, maybe there are inefficiencies. In fact, there definitely are inefficiencies. But it's something we have to have. So are you willing to cut it? Yeah, I'm willing to cut it. I know there's inefficiencies, expenses, all of those things. I got you on that. The others failed. Unemployment, welfare, mandatory spending, and entitlements. Failed ideas. Teaches people the wrong thing, and it just spreads the wealth around, and it's unsustainable. Medicare, Medicaid as well. And then the interest on past debts, failed government. We shouldn't be in debt, and we wouldn't have that 5% expense every year. A good portion of the 70% of things that we spend money on is part of the budget. Failed government ideas or failed government execution of failed ideas. That's where we're at. And most of those things didn't exist as recently as the Kennedy administration. Social Security was only 20 years old? Not quite 20 years old? Medicare, Medicaid, the debt to that level didn't exist. Wonder if that could have anything to do with our current unsustainable past, fiscally speaking. And if you go down the list of the remaining roughly 30% of things we spend money on, things that didn't exist as well. No, Department of Housing and Urban Development, Education, Homeland Security, the Department of Energy, the EPA, National Science Foundation, National Infrastructure Bank, whatever the hell that is, the Corporation of National and Community Service. Things that the government took on that is not their responsibility or duty. There's the facts. There's the numbers. And there's the problem. That's the reason you can't get a job today. That's the reason the economy is doing bad. And that's the reason we may lose our AAA rating. That's the reason we're going to have a $1.5 trillion deficit this year and over $1 trillion next year to add to the one from the last 2 years where they were each over $1 trillion. There's your answer. You want to know what to cut? Start cutting the non-discretionary things because they were never meant to be non-discretionary. Your calls coming up on 700 WL. Start Tracker forecast for meteorologist Frank Marzullo. We got cloudy skies and cold today. Afternoon high around 33. We could see some snow showers tonight. Accumulation an inch or two by dawn. Overnight low about 27. Currently 26 right now at the big one, 700 WLW. And if you're tired of the weather, well, get ready for the Reds. Reds Caravan rolls through just after the bottom of the hour, about 9:33. Go to 700WLW.com. You can pull up the webcam, see all the shenanigans. A bunch of the guys will join me, and Mo Egger will be in here as well. Jim on a cell phone. You're on 700 WLW.
Hey, good morning, Doc.
How you doing, sir?
Oh, good. One time I didn't depend on too much on Social Security, but I've lost my job over a year and a half, collected unemployment, now I'm on a TRA. I have a 401k, annuity, IRA. I just had turned 60 years old. I'm hoping to get a little bit out of there, and I'm going out at 62 years old.
How old are you right now?
I just turned 60 this month.
All right. Well, you'll get a little bit. I mean, it's, the next 20-some years, you'd be able to get a little bit out of it anyways. I mean, assuming that it runs out then.
Exactly.
But you've done the other things on the side, though, to take care of it.
Yeah, a little bit too much. Yeah, a little bit. But I did lost a lot in the 401k when the market crashed because my company invested, and we invested also. But on what I was getting at, these annuities and stuff, I'm getting ready to collect them when the TRA runs out, the trade readjustment allowance, because I lost my job to China, which is good. Let them all go to China. But anyway, but trying to collect on them annuities, boy, they sure try to make it hard on you. They try to sort of, you don't want to touch it, they kind of say. You want to stay there until 66 or something. No, I'm going to need to start drawing from it. I am now 60.
Yeah, I understand. My father goes through that with his annuity. He has an annuity through Lincoln Electric where he used to work up in Euclid, Ohio. And he has battled that, any little ups and downs, and they start trying to stick it to you. Joe, Fort Wright, you're on 700 WLW.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest about the Social Security situation, one of the biggest outrages is this. There's this huge workforce in the United States government employees who don't even pay into Social Security.
The private system.
They got their own little thing. How come nobody says, well, okay, tomorrow we're going to require all the federal employees to pay into the Social Security system? And then maybe they can keep the thing solvent for a little bit longer. But all these government workers, they got their own little program.
Well, that's because we're all equal, but some are created a little more equal.
And I think if you're looking for where can we get more money to keep the Social Security system afloat, just take all these government employees and make them do what everybody else has to do.
No, I agree with you there. They've got the own system. If Social Security is so great, how come they're not investing in it as well? They're not a part of the system. The way to do it needs to be ratcheted down. Someone's going to get left holding the bag. Then start educating kids growing up, saying you're going to need to retire, plan for your retirement, teach them how to do that, and then explain the consequences if they don't. Encourage these things in school, but allow them to make their choices so they're the ones responsible for making good or bad decisions, and they don't have to take care of somebody else. In Westchester, Tom, you're on 700 WLW. Hello, Tom.
Oh, I think initially they need to cut out all the free housing and all the welfare, or give about 12 months. Tell them that each month you're going to cut down about 6%, and then just wipe it down to nothing.
Those things represent just over 16% of the budget, so that's a nice chunk of it.
Well, it's absolutely ridiculous, and I think that they ought to cut out the minimum wage. That way people have to find work, at least can work, and depending on what they're willing to sacrifice, they're willing to make their own and pull their own plow.
Here's the interesting.
They got to work two jobs.
Here's the interesting, Tom. We're talking about straightening out the budget. Everyone wants to talk about the non-discretionary spending. So they talk about Social Security and unemployment, welfare, Medicare, Medicaid, the interest payments on the past debt. All of these things that we have to do represent about 70%. And they say, well, we can't touch that. But the thing, all of those things are broken. All of those things need some sort of adjustment. Even the people on the left will say, well, Social Security, we got to come up. President said the other night, we need some common sense plan to make it solvable. All of those things are broken, and yet those are the things they're saying we're not going to touch or deal with. Take some more of your calls coming up right after the news.